Itica has been on TV for quite a while. And then she pivoted to something that she knows really, really well. And she can talk to, how you recover from foibles and all of that. It's really interesting, how she approaches things. And she approaches things differently than some people who talk about executive presence. And I think it's really much more approachable and relatable to most of us who it's like, we're worried about stumbling on things. And literally, she did stumble on camera. But
Many
she
times.
recovered quite well. I don't really, but so we're so grateful to have you here and
Thank
hold
you.
your questions in the side and we'll answer them towards the end and I'll help facilitate that. And Itika, you're so gracious to be presenting to us and
Oh,
thank you
Christy,
so
thank you
much
so
for
much
being
for
with
having
us.
me. It is
So hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the time and the opportunity to be here. I've heard so many great things about this group, so I feel really privileged to be spending some time with you. So, to give you a little bit of background, Christy shared that I was in TV news for 25 years. There were many days where I walked in gracefully, and there were a few days where I did stumble literally as I was walking into the studio. Before you all joined us, I was sharing with the group that when things happen, you just have to keep on going. You have to not let on that something has happened. I was sharing that I was trying to walk into the studio between the 5 and the 6 p.m. news, and the show, the 5 p.m. is going on, and in the studio there's a step, you have to step over it. Well, I was wearing boots and carrying a bunch of things, and I literally fell, and you can hear me fall on the air. But when I watched the airplay, they just kept right on going like nothing happened, even though I was, on my knees with all of my stuff everywhere. So you just have to keep on going and pretend like nothing. And if you have to, laugh about it. Make light of it, laugh at yourself. That's the most important thing. Okay, so I started my career in South Georgia, and then I stepped away from news after 6 markets. I was the communications director for San Diego County Supervisor. And today I'm helping people like you, leaders, with media training and public speaking. And I like for my clients to find authenticity, not to change who they are, but just to bring out and polish their voice, helping you craft messages that resonate, speak with clarity, confidence, and to connect with audiences in a way that truly lands. So, welcome. So, I want to talk this morning about executive presence and unshakable delivery. What is executive presence? I would love to hear from you in the chat what you think, because I think that for most people, it could sound different, it could feel different, it could look different. So, to you, what does that mean? What is executive presence? When you think about an executive, what do you think of? What are some of the qualities? Let's go ahead and put that in the chat. Christy, do you want to share some of the responses?
Sure. I put poise, command, confidence, knowledgeable, calm, to the point,
Beautiful.
vision, conviction, refinement.
Oh
I like
my.
that. And stage presence,
Yes.
unflappability, which is what
Yes.
you're doing right now, Itika.
That is perfectly said. Those are all of the qualities. And here are some more. And you basically said it all. All of that falls under these. Gravitas. What is gravitas? It is composure. It is judgment and that people can feel. Communication. It is clarity, brevity, a tone that carries some weight. It is the weight that you carry into that room, that calm authority, the sense that you are not going to crack under pressure. And that comes from preparation. Self-control, emotional maturity, and experience, right? If you haven't had the experience, if everything has been smooth along your journey and you haven't known what it's like to really feel that nervousness if something goes wrong, well, it's probably a disservice. You have to go through that to truly understand what it feels like. So people who have executive presence, they make decisions quickly and they own them. They show restraint when others react. When something goes wrong, they don't panic. They pivot. So you can feel that steadiness and appearance, often dismissed as superficial, but it's not. It's actually the first layer of communication. It's how you signal credibility before you even open your mouth and speak. So it is authentic. It is being charismatic, confident, and composed. They're also good communicators. People with executive presence speak with clarity, precision, and tone that commands respect. Leaders with presence speak with purpose, and they organize their thoughts before they speak, and they show that authority without using extra words. We cut out the filler. We're going to hear more about that in just a moment. So every leader that you have respected has probably shown a lot of these qualities and probably has spoken a lot more slowly than everyone else in the room. Christy, you are a great example of that. You don't speak quickly and give that sense of panic. You speak very calmly, you are very composed, and you come across as the leader that you are. So that confidence, because you're not chasing approval, you're delivering with clarity. That's the difference between speaking to people and speaking at them. Another thing, you look polished. When somebody walks into a room and they look polished, it doesn't have to be a fancy outfit. It doesn't have to be a lot of jewelry, but simple, refined polish. Your physical presentation should align with your professional intent and your environment. You have to match that environment if you're a leader, maybe a little bit a notch above than your others, but a polished presence always comes across as confidence without cockiness or arrogance. And appearance isn't about beauty or being trendy. It's about alignment. Your goal is to lead your team, and your visual message should say decisive, capable, intentional. And the rule is simple. If what you're wearing distracts from what you're saying, you're sending the wrong signal and you're missing the point. So take me, for example. I have very simple earrings. My clothing is solid colors, and there are no patterns to this. If there was a flashy pattern, I had big jewelry, big earrings, big hair, lots of makeup, that could be distracting to some audiences. And what that does is it takes away from your message, because people are looking at your jewelry. Oh, that's a nice necklace. Oh, that's too big. Oh, that print it's too much for the camera. Sometimes what works off camera and in person does not translate well when it's on camera. So if you are doing Zoom meetings, a lot of things online, just keep that in mind when you're choosing your outfit. Sometimes solid, bright colors are best, jewel tones. For men, if you are wearing a jacket and you have to wear a tie, just be careful that the tie doesn't have a lot of patterns and isn't distracting. It could cause what's called a moire effect, and that is when the camera just picks up something and it doesn't look right. So let's stay with neutrals and solids. Okay, so becoming unshakable. What does that look like? It's the practical side of executive presence. It's not just confidence, it's durability. It's the ability to hold your ground when circumstances shift, when your heart is racing, and when the unexpected hits. Like when you fall into the studio. But you still have to come across and deliver with clarity and with calm. You are their rock. So being unshakable doesn't mean that you don't feel nerves. It just means that your nerves aren't running the show. How do we build that? How do you build that kind of steadiness? Well, let's find out. It's preparation, it's mindset, and it's physiological control. Preparation, you can never be too prepared. If you're giving some kind of speech, I'll give you a little tip here. You don't want to memorize it, because what happens when you try to memorize? If you do get nervous, you may forget. When we get anxious, our brains don't work the same as when we are calm and composed. We may forget. And if we forget, we get more nervous. So it just builds on itself. So when you are speaking, try to have 3 key points that you want to get across. If your talk ends, what are 3 things that you want them to walk away from? So what happens is, if you have those 3 bullet points, then if you know your message, and you should know it, if you're speaking from authority about something, in your heart, you should know that material. So if you have those 3 points, just take that and then speak. Maybe you have something prepared, or you can just speak off the cuff from your heart, because people normally feel that. They can feel that authenticity. So that comes across a little bit more genuinely. So 3 key points. Also, when you own your material inside out, you're going to feel a little bit more confident. And second is mindset. Like I said, just being unshakable starts up here and in here with that inner calm. It is a choice to see pressure as a privilege rather than a threat. That's another important thing, is that shift in your mindset. If you take maybe a little bit of the nerves that come with a presentation, or walking into a keynote speech, or walking into a meeting, take that nervous energy, shift it, and say, wow, this is an opportunity to use that adrenaline as energy when I talk. So it doesn't come across as nerves, it's just excitement. Does that make sense? Just shift that around. And that little shift in perspective goes a long way. When you're nervous, that nervous energy really trickles down to the people in that room. They can feel it, maybe not consciously, but they do feel it. So that's another thing, is you want to prevent your team from getting hijacked and feeling tense. And self-consciousness kills composure. Even outward, it really does have an impact on your presentation. And third is the physiological control. Your body doesn't lie. If your breath is shallow, your brain is going to panic. If your stance is hunched shoulders, not sitting up straight, look at the difference between this, right? Not making eye contact, you're slouching, versus this. Sitting up straight, shoulders back, eye contact makes a huge, huge difference. Even if you're feeling a little anxious inside, just those things can make such a huge difference. That single action of a little bit of faking it till you make it, having that inner presence and making your body do that, and even smiling. Go ahead and smile right now. Just create a smile. That has a physiological impact on our bodies. So just smiling a couple of times changes your mood, it elevates you, and that also will have a great impact. So before you speak, take a deep breath, take a couple breaths if you need to, and exhale completely and slowly. That is going to lower your heart rate, and it's going to steady your voice. Your audience will feel the difference, even if they can't name it. So, what happens when things go wrong? Like earlier when I couldn't get my slides up, what happens? You just pause, you smile until you work it out, because things will go wrong. So you just have to get through it with a smile. You breathe, and then you recenter. The presence shows up when the Wi-Fi fails, when the CEO cuts you off, when a curveball question hits mid-presentation. What do? Well, your reaction is your reputation. So pause, breathe, and recenter. It's okay not to continually talk. It's okay to slow it down. Your response is important. Don't feel that you need to rush the space. Use silence as a tool. And I have more on that later. When you're calm under pressure, you project power, and when you get visibly flustered, you leak authority. You leak authority. I heard that recently. I was like, oh, I need to use that. That's really good. If you don't know the answer, you can say so. It's okay. We're not robots. We're not chat. We are not meant to have every answer. So executive presence means being honest. Say, that's a great question. Let me find out and get back to you. And you know what? Somebody did that to me recently, and I was so shocked that they were so honest about it that my trust in that person just jumped dramatically. And I said, you know what? Thank you. Thank you for not trying to just fudge your way through that answer. I appreciate that. So I if I do business with you, I am going to trust you. So that's another important thing. Just own it. It's not about perfection. Presence is about control. So this is one of my favorite quotes. Impossible situations can be brilliantly disguised as great opportunities. Right? Impossible situations can be brilliantly disguised as great opportunities. How many of you know Dr. Joe Dispenza? Isn't he great? I love him. So, what do you do when you have a fiasco? Well, you turn it into an opportunity. How do you do that? You refuse to waste that pain. A fiasco isn't a failure until you walk away unchanged. And here's how to turn that leverage instead of turning it into baggage. When things blow up, your first instinct is usually defense or denial, and that's normal. But it's also the moment when you lose the lesson. Step back, breathe, name what happened in plain language. This went wrong because of X. No blame, no drama, just clarity. Own it publicly without making excuses. Turn the chaos into a case study. You can say, you know what? I think this is a lesson that my team can also be aware of to maybe prevent this from happening in the future. So you can share it with your team or just make a mental note on how you can avoid that in the future. Turn it into a case study. What if I were to tell you that there were saboteurs among us and they are wreaking havoc on your success and credibility in the workplace? This is what I'm talking about. Crutch words. Anybody know what a crutch word is? It's also known as filler. We're going to use the chat now. I want you to write down the words that you hear often that are crutch words or filler words. Before I share what they are, I want to hear from you what you think they are, and maybe if you know what they are, which ones you use often. Christy, I'm going to ask you to jump in and share what some of the responses are.
Okay, they're coming up. Like, you know, if you will, basically, do you know what I mean?
Spot on.
Right. But does that make sense? Yeah, does that make sense is a common one and sort of a lot, right? Yeah, there's a lot of them, huh? 100%.
We all fall into that trap. And it's okay when we're speaking one-on-one with someone, but when we're in the boardroom, when we're in the workplace, that could cut into your credibility. You don't come across as a leader who is in control. You sound nervous and you don't sound confident. So here are, actually, no, let's stay with the crutch words for a second. All of those words, they dilute the power of your message. Imagine this. Picture your radio. Some of you may be too young to have a radio in your car where you turn that dial and now we just have everything digital where you're pressing your buttons and it's digital. But when you're driving and you get a radio station and you hear static. Every time you hear static, you're losing your message. What happens when you hear too much static? You change the channel. So that is what a filler word does in human terms. People tune out. You lose your audience. So listen to this. So, like, I was thinking maybe we take a different direction. Here's the opposite of that. I believe we should take a different direction. Hear the difference? Feel the difference? One is unsure. The other is a leader taking control. That's executive presence. Which one are you more likely to have confidence in? When we use crutch words in the workplace, it undermines our authority. It makes us appear that we're unsure of ourselves, unsure of the situation. And over time, this affects how we come across and how seriously we're taken in the workplace. Why do you think it is that we use these? Why are we so uncomfortable with silence? Even if it's just for a second or two, why do you think that is? I want to hear your thoughts in the chat. Why are we so uncomfortable with just a second or two of pausing? Maybe a few seconds. Why is that? And do you feel it? Do you ever feel uncomfortable either when you have to pause or think, get your bearings, or if you hear somebody else pause? What do you feel? Christy, what are you seeing?
So fear of not connecting with the audience, anxiety. For
Yes.
many, it's not natural, but natural pauses are a great tool. Lack of confidence. Don't feel comfortable with silence. I'm questioning.
Mm.
Um, Someone did ask, does it make sense a filler? Um,
Why does it make sense?
yeah, what does it make sense is the phrase
Oh,
that
I see.
yeah. So that's a question somebody has. Attention spans. And I was at a dinner last night and there were some silences and I would agree. It's like, well, wait a minute. Does that mean I need to step in and fill in the
Exactly.
space?
Right. Yes. And sometimes it could. And that's where communication, maybe an unspoken communication or a verbal communication, could come in. For instance, right now, this is a perfect example. I'm asking Christy, what are you seeing on your end? Because the way my screen is, I'm not able to see the chats, but she can. So I'm communicating with her and saying, Christy, what are you seeing on your end? So you be resourceful and you find ways to get around that problem. And it's okay when you're trying to think, okay, how do I do this? It's okay to pause. But because I'm not in the same room with her and I can't make eye contact, I'm saying, Christy, what are you seeing on your end? You're taking control of the situation. So when we don't have that, we stumble, we lose track of what we plan to say, and we start using those crutch words. And then there goes that powerful presentation that we worked on. A little shift in perspective here as well. It's called the power of the pause. So it can be intentional as well as unintentional. And what do I mean by that? Being intentional, you eliminate your crutch words like this. You pause, you record yourself doing your presentation or your speech, and then go back and you count the number of crutch words that you used. And then you go back and do it again. You count the number of crutch words. And then you're like, I almost did it. Just had one on that time. And that's okay. But that's how you get rid of it is you practice and you rinse and repeat. But recording yourself and watching it back, super, super important because you could catch things that you don't know that you're doing. For instance, you could be swiveling in your chair and not know it. This is not okay because it's distracting. This signals I'm nervous and I am not sure about myself. And what else? What else could happen when jingling your coins if you're standing up? That's another thing. So another way that you can try to eliminate these is in the workplace. If you have a team, say, you know what, let's start a challenge. Let's challenge each other to eliminate our crutch words. And you can hold yourselves accountable. Maybe have a jar where you put in a coin. Does anybody have coins anymore? Does anybody carry cash? If you do, maybe start a jar at work and just put in a little deposit every time you say a crutch word or every time a team member says a crutch word. And by the end of the week, I would love to see how full or how empty that jar is. So that's another way. And you can also practice when you're with your friends or your family. Make that a fun game. Say, okay, we're going to do this. I'm trying to practice how to eliminate my crutch words. Every time you hear me say something, I'll buy you lunch or I'll buy you a coffee, and hold yourselves accountable. Let's elevate our presence. Let's elevate our skills. Presence isn't about dominance. It is about smooth and steady. People who follow leaders, they make them feel safe. They're clear and they're capable. You can't project that if you're frantic or you're reactive. So when you're calm and others borrow from that calm, when you're grounded, they feel that. They feel that safe footing. So that's why presence matters. It's not for you, it's for them. And to become unshakable, you have to commit to this. You have to control what you can. There are things that you can control, but you can be prepared. You can have control of your inner self and your intent. Let go of what you can't control. Every time you stay composed into chaos, you strengthen that muscle. So sometimes when something happens, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you because it's preparing you for another big event. Like I was talking about earlier, if everything is smooth all the time, how do you know? How do you get that practice? So the executive presence is that quiet authority that says, without words, without ever saying anything, I've got this, and you're following my lead. A couple of other tips that I want to share with you. When you pause, this is the power of the pause. This is a little trick we had in TV. A pause can signal you trying to buy yourself a few seconds so that you can maybe remember what you forgot to say. But you can also use it as a tool when you're speaking to create anticipation, to create drama in what you're going to say. Here's an example. At the SDSU campus, the crowd roared when Melanie Smith walked across that stage. The reason, there were 600 other graduates there, but Melanie was 96 years old. See how I paused there and you're like, oh, why? Because she's 96. Oh my gosh, who does that at that age? So you pause and then you lean in, and that's part of your storytelling magic, is that when people don't hear anything, they're like, what? They lean in for more. What is she gonna say? You're creating anticipation, you're creating momentum in your story. And then when you share it, you're like, she's 96 years old. You use that vocal variety to make that impactful message. You guys feel that difference? Creating that little moment. And it also buys you a little bit of time. I want to share with you a couple of quotes. I was just going to pick one, but I love these all so much and I feel that they're relevant. I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Dr. Maya Angelou, that's one of my favorites. And that's important when you're speaking. People are not going to remember the 32 statistics that you just rattled off in your meeting. They're not. Maybe they'll remember one of them if it was like, wow, they made $1 billion this year. But what they're going to remember is how you touched their heart, how you made them feel. Did you evoke any kind of emotion? So let's say you did have a statistic, a few statistics. Infuse some emotion into that. Our company made $1 billion this year, but we're giving back. We're giving back to our employees. And we're going to do during the Christmas, we're going to have an extra bonus, and you all are going to get a bonus. They're going to remember that because that's when you tug at the heartstrings. That's where the emotion comes in. And that's what Maya was saying is, how do you make someone move me? Move me. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill. Courage, so important as a leader. To have executive presence, you have to have courage because you will fail. Hopefully it's not publicly and hopefully it's not in front of a bunch of people, but it's going to happen. And you have to get back up, dust yourself off, and keep on going. If you can speak, you can influence. If you can influence, you can change lives. You can move the world. Rob Brown. He's not a household name, but I thought this was so powerful because this is what a lot of you do as leaders, as people in the workplace, as CEOs, executives. You talk to people and you have to influence. That is part of your job, is influencing, moving that needle, getting results is by influencing. And how do you do that? You show up for your team. You speak clearly. You show them, I am your rock. You can follow me. You're safe. All of this goes into that pot for executive presence. So success. What does success mean to you? Let's write it in the chat. Would love to hear what you guys feel success is because it's so different. It could mean money, financial comfort, financial freedom for some people, but for others, it could mean time with your family. You've gotten to a point in your career where you're comfortable with what you're making, that you can make more time for your family. What does that look like? What does it feel like to you? Christy, what are you seeing?
So a lot of things. So for me personally, it's achieving what I set out to achieve. That feels like success. Helping others, time with family, achieving goals, happiness and financial freedom. Financial freedom is a lot. When others tell me I made their life better, projects completed. Uh, yeah, it's a lot about freedom. Live
Good.
life to the fullest.
Ah, that's fantastic. That's what it's all about, is getting to a point where you are successful, where you can have that extra time, because time is something that we cannot buy. We can't get it back. So when you reach that level of success, when you can take that time for yourself and your family and make memories, memories is what it's all about. Does anybody have any questions for me?
So before we get started on that, yeah, please, there are some questions in the chat. But it's interesting. You pointed out a lot of things differently than I've heard other people mention. The physiological part of it. I mean, naming it, labeling it like that. and the breathing, because you mentioned that shallow breath,
Oh,
and to
yes.
just expand, your capacity does have a tendency to calm you down. I find it really interesting. You talked a lot about leaking authority.
Hmm.
And what's interesting is because you have such a command, you've been unflappable with all this technology stuff. You haven't wavered as far as the tone in your voice, your cadence. And my guess is it's because of your training too. Being on camera certainly has a lot, but um, how can people practice that practically, right? You had mentioned recording yourself, but what are some of the key elements that even before they get there that they can focus on?
Great question, Christy. That's great because for me, I had 25 years of practice. And every single night when I went home, I would go home and watch it. So I would record the newscast and I would watch it and I would jot down, oh, that was bad. I need to work on that. Or, oh, I that worked, so I'm going to do that again. So, practically speaking, what you can do at home if you really, really want to work on this is write something, or if you have some kind of presentation that you are going to be delivering, if you have a keynote, or if you're just welcoming a group and you're going to be in front of people, maybe you can't have notes, is when you're home or even in your office, you can practice this. Just set your cell phone up, have your speech recorded into the camera, and try it without any crutch words. Try it where you can see yourself, what you're doing, your body language. Make sure to make eye contact. Make sure you're not doing this. Make sure your camera is not like this. Make sure that you don't have a lot of headroom. All of these little things factor in. When you feel completely confident, it will ooze out of you. So
It
it's just
that's really interesting. And so oozing out, especially you talking about being on Zoom, because that's where most of the interviews take place, right?
yes,
And so many meetings are going to be on Zoom, whether they're combination of conference room and Zoom, people are going to be on a camera. And in person, you had mentioned in person, it's almost easier, right? But when, you're on Zoom, you have to take even more special care to make sure, the camera placement, et cetera.
yes.
So, and that sense of like, you know, presenting,
Hmm.
I think it can be really challenging to get in that mindset of okay, I need to present and be authentic. I mean, it's kind of like a golf swing. There's all these things that you have to
Oh,
remember.
absolutely. There's a lot of variables involved. And I think what you're saying is really important because it's also how do you get yourself ready emotionally, physically, and just ready with that energy is you have to create it within yourself. You have to take breaths. Here's a good technique as well. Think about and have this ready is think about a time when you hit a home run, whether it was at work, in your personal life, in your childhood. Maybe you did literally hit a home run. Something that brought you so much joy, an accomplishment, and you were so happy. Let's try it right now. I want you to all think about a moment that brought you so much joy because you worked so hard for it. What did that feel like? Close your eyes and just go into your body and ask yourself, oh my gosh, that was such a great moment in my life. What were the sensations? Was my heart racing? Was I smiling like my face was gonna crack? What was it? And stay with that emotion for a minute. And if you want to, be like, oh my God, yes, this is what I was feeling. This is all family. We're good here. We can share our emotions if you want to. Just remember that emotion. When you go to speak, if you feel that you need to hype yourself up, before you start, take a moment, recreate that feeling in yourself, and you're going to see the difference. You're going to feel the difference. It's going to come across because your energy has just been hijacked in a good way.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting approach. I want to go to that phrase, does it make sense? Because a lot of people use it. I mean, I include because sometimes you're talking about technical things and it's like, well, does this make sense? So what can you use in place of it? Because I've heard time and time again, it's the wrong statement. You don't want to use that statement. And but what do you use instead when you want to make sure people are like getting it?
Sure. And I think it's okay every once in a while to use that if you can't think of anything else or if it just comes out. It's okay. Don't panic. It's not the most horrible thing. Maybe another thing you can say is, "Are you following? Do you have any questions?"
Yeah.
Because that's
Okay.
essentially what you're doing is you're asking, "Do you have any questions? Are you getting this?"
Yeah. Okay. And then the use of AI. Have you used AI at all with some of your things?
I have in the sense that maybe there's a sentence I want to polish or just for an idea. The thing with AI, what that has not mastered yet is the human
Mm.
part of what we are, who we are. We can get information, but it's the delivery, it's that human delivery, that emotion that you are evoking, that emotion that you're trying to get from people, you're trying to move them. AI can't do that yet. Maybe one day, but it's not there yet. So if you're going to use AI, it's okay. Just make sure if you're using text from AI that you inject your own personality, your own voice into it so that when you speak, it sounds like you.
So there's an interesting question in the chat. What about executive presence on a phone screen? So,
Great
you
question.
don't have the ability to meet somebody, on screen or in person, and it's all on the phone. How do we exude executive presence on the phone?
That's where the quality of your voice comes in. Your voice is super important. You need to have authority in your voice, like you're in control. Be prepared for that phone call so that if you have a question that you may not know the answer to, be ready with a response that is appropriate at the time. Listen to the difference in the voice quality here. Hello. Hello. Good morning. How are you? It's that authority that you project, that you're in control, you got this. Or we can say, sure, just a moment, I'll find out for you. So talk from your diaphragm, speaking from your diaphragm. And that's why it helps when you're sitting up straight because you can have more control over your voice. It's something you have to be conscious of and you have to practice. But yes, that's a great question because we do have a lot of phone calls and that executive presence, the visual part of it doesn't translate.
And here's another question. How can you create a lasting impression through your executive presence? Or is it just your executive presence creates the lasting impression?
Your executive presence should create a memorable and lasting impression. That's what executive presence is. It's the way you show up, it's the way you walk into a room, it's your handshake, it's your eye contact. And again, how you make people feel. All of those qualities go into it. Be memorable. When you shake somebody's hand, look them in the eye and say, hello, nice to meet you, whatever your situation is. Just connect. It's about connecting with people, having that charisma that you're interested in them, but it's authentic. That's a lot of it is authenticity. People
So
can feel that.
here's yeah, and here's an interesting question, and this is if you're coming into a boardroom to present, everyone else is already settled. And
Yes.
Jennifer, I love this question. How do you like figure out, of course, there's always the pecking order, the strategic placement of people. And they're already settled in. How do you like just mentally, get in there and feel like you're coming in confidently and own the room when everyone else has already established themselves?
Yes, walking into a new environment, guess what?
I mean, they're already settled and you're coming in
Yeah.
to present. It's like, okay, it's you don't have a chance to like settle in. You're walking in and then all of a
No.
sudden you're on.
Well, I will actually challenge that because when you're presenting, when you're walking into a room, everybody is settled. That's your opportunity. Shift it. Shift that mindset. It's your opportunity to make that memorable presence. And you have had time to prepare before you got in. You have to prepare mentally as well as making sure that you know what you're talking about. So that time before you walk in is your time to prepare. When you go in, you just have to own the room. And if you don't have that initially, I'll tell you what, faking it until you make it can be really powerful. I've had to do it and it works. If you're not feeling comfortable, put a smile on your face. It changes your mood like that. It changes your physiology. But you have command of the room when you walk in. If you are a leader, you likely will have expert knowledge of what you're talking about. And what does that mean? You have authority. You're confident. So it's going to come out. You just have to recognize that. Don't think about the people in the room. Think about you. I'm the authority because I'm speaking on something that I know very well. So I have the confidence. I'm going to be confident when I speak. So it's a matter of just shifting the perspective. Don't think about the others. Think about you.
Thank you for that. What Frank Martelli says, walk in like you mean it. It is true. It's like
Yes.
and in a way, I love how you said flip the script because if you're walking in the room and you say, okay, I'm on stage now, and you own it kind of like a Tony Robbins, right?
Yes.
It's like you've been invited in. You're not subordinate. You're actually the one that's in control at that point.
Correct. Yes.
So that I think is an important mind shift.
Yes.
And Anush asks, what do you wear to capture executive presence? I see many execs wearing casual clothes and loafers, not the old days of suit and tie. And and that's kind of tricky for men, especially. I almost feel like women have an easier time of this whole like casual kind of dress code. But men, it's like, you don't know. Do you wear a button-down shirt, crisp, and a tie and a jacket, or what are, some of the rules for executive
Yeah.
presence when it's like this mix of business casual and whatever?
Yeah. COVID really did change things, didn't it?
A lot.
It changed the landscape of how people show up to work. But here's how I look at it: executive presence is what you want it to be. If you work in a tech environment and everybody is wearing hoodies, a sweatshirt, and sneakers, and you feel as a leader that you want to blend in, then wear that. It's what you make of it. If you want to appear as a leader, maybe you keep your jeans and your sneakers and you just put a blazer on. That's instant credibility right there. That's instant. I'm an executive, I'm a leader.
It's kind of
Also,
trendy too.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. For women, I would say dress one notch above. We always want to dress how we want to be, not where we are. If you want to get a promotion, dress like you already have that promotion.
Good.
Sometimes it's not
Okay.
always okay to blend in. It just depends on the situation.
Okay. So how do people contact you?
Yes,
And you do coaching for individuals and for companies.
and for
Tell
teams,
us
yes.
more about your service and how you work with individuals, etc.
Sure. So my website is under construction. I'm rebranding everything right now. So the best way to get in touch is my email or my phone number here. So what I do is I work one-on-one with people and I also work with teams. I do executive coaching one-on-one, totally confidential. Some people don't want others to know that they are working with someone. So whether you want a team environment, a bunch of people at one time, a small team, large teams, or just that one on one where I can devote all of my time and energy to you, it's exactly what I do. And I also do media training. So if any of you are wanting to do any kind of media like podcasting or radio, TV, print interviews, I'll help you with that because I know what the media wants. I know what they respond to, what they resonate with. So I'm happy to help with that. And I've coached a lot of people who do podcasting, so podcast hosting as well. Thank you for asking, Christy.
You do a fabulous job with your voice, and that's what I'm
Oh,
fascinated
thank
by
you.
is you have that right pitch. It's not too low, and it's certainly not high because I know as women our executive presence leaks, and I love that word. But it leaks the higher we go, and we typically, or if we end our sentence, with an uptick that's
With
like a
an up, yes,
question.
yes.
And I feel like, we women do it more than men. But and that lessens our power. But you've trained your voice very, very well. Are there tools that we can use to train our voice at
I
a
would
certain
say
pitch?
practicing recording yourself and listening to it back. You can work with someone to help you with that, but for basics, start with just practicing on your own and recording it. And it's all about creating a story. So high for excitement. When you're talking about something more serious, you want to lower your voice and you want to speak a little more slowly for that maximum impact. So just practice those little tips and I'm here to help if you need anything. But it's just doing it over and over.
So we'll pass along your information. Are you gonna be sharing your slides with the group?
I would love to. Sure.
Okay, so
Yes.
send us the file,
Okay.
and we'll make sure that it's in with the recording, the link to the recording.
Perfect.
And I am fascinated by how you go about this. It's really interesting because you
Thank you.
yourself, I mean, again, unflappable. You're
Thank you.
so easy to listen to, and you just have great ideas. They're so practical that all of us can do it, and it's fascinating. There is a science around it, I know, and you've incorporated everything. And I know you've had years of practice, but your grace and fluidity has
Thank
really
you.
made an impression on me. It's amazing. So
Thank you so
thank
much.
you. We hope you come back.
I would love
And
to.
we'd love to because this is something that I think most executives uh have issues with, whether it's presenting or interviewing.
Mm,
That's the one thing that, I see time and time again. People almost subordinate themselves when they walk into an interview, which, lessens their influence right out of the gate.
absolutely.
And having that command presence the minute you walk in the door or enter in a Zoom room, right,
First
is so
impressions.
important. Yeah. So I think from an interview standpoint, people could really use your support. So thank you,
Thank
Itica.
you.
And so I so appreciate you being here. I know that and people are already asking me for the recording. So
Okay,
I know that.
wonderful.
So thank you,
Wonderful.
thank you, thank you.
My pleasure.
and we'll hopefully see you again soon, and
That's great.
let's stay in contact. Thank you.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you,
Thank
everyone,
you.
for being with us, and we'll see you again soon. Maybe
Sounds
it's
great. Have a
next
good
week.
weekend.
Not sure. Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
Bye bye.
everybody.